It's not often that we get to have something resembling breaking news on a weekly show here, but I think we may have some tonight. Shout out to Corey Thorpe over at NAIF Ball for keeping me abreast of what's going on. And so we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. We have a lot to talk about tonight, so we're going to get into it. It may actually be a shorter show this week. We'll see how that all plays out. But I encourage you, please let us know from where you're watching. If you're watching this live, let us know from where you're watching and who you're going to be cheering for this year, especially in the NAIA. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Hi, I'm Joey McWilliams. Welcome to College Football This Week, and let's get right to it. Breaking news at Graceland University in Lamoni, Iowa. And there is a head coaching change. And I actually did get to change one of the graphics a little bit later on, but did not get to put this up for you. So I'm going to read from the release today. Okay, here we go. Graceland University has announced a key leadership transition within its football program effective immediately. Head coach Patrick Ross will step into a new role as general manager of football operations, while longtime assistant and offensive coordinator Phil Stayback. Coach, I hope I got that right. I've been asking for pronunciation on that. So anyway, he's been promoted to head coach. Ross, who has led the Yellow Jackets with vision and purpose, will begin stepping back from day-to-day responsibilities to focus on player placement, recruiting, and coach mentorship. And this from the athletic director, Brady McKillop. He says, Patrick has made a significant and lasting impact on our football program. He's elevated the program in so many ways, and we're excited that he'll continue to contribute in a role that leverages his strengths and relationships. So let's talk about this one briefly. Again, if you're just tuning in, breaking news that there will be a 19th first-year coach, a first-year head coach in the NAI this year. And that brings our number of first-year and second-year coaches up to 32.9% of all the head coaches in the NAI in this year heading into 2025. So give or take a third, right at a third, and will be in their first or second year with the program. Now, that having been said, let's go ahead and look back really quickly. Okay, Coach Ross is going to stay with the program, and he's going to be the general manager of football operations. Let's stop right there for just a moment and say, does it sound more and more like the college football structure is looking and sounding like professional football and the NFL? So, wow. You see this all around. I mean, there are a number of positions now, and it's not just Division I. It's now, and we see it in the NAI, general manager. That's a term that I never heard before with college football or college sports as a whole. General manager, and it goes on, of football operations. Now, I'm sure that whatever that entails, and we read some of those, some different responsibilities, player placement, recruiting, coach mentorship, all of that, no question, no doubt Coach Ross can do that and absolutely do it well. It's just different. I mean, it really is a whole new world that we're in right now, and it's not something that's just on the Division I level. It's on the small college level too, and so anyway, it is something that we have to watch for, and we're seeing it play out in front of us in real time right now. Shout out to Dave. Dave, thanks for watching, Dave. There is a Morningside segment tonight, so I hope that you stick around for that. But yeah, the Hall of Fame game and Joey Live. Wow, that's a good Thursday night. Well, thank you, Dave. I appreciate that, and thanks for stopping by here. We appreciate everyone doing that. Now to Coach Phil, what an awesome opportunity there is here. He was with Coach Ross as an All-American quarterback in the NAI, played in the NAI championship game under Coach Ross way back when, I think it was 2011. He's also been an offensive coordinator on the Division II level, and he's working as offensive coordinator now. We'll see if he keeps that title and if he's going to be the head coach and call the plays as well. We all know, and we've talked about it many times here on this channel, that he has one of, if not the best offensive weapons in all of the NAI at his disposal in Gerald Monroe. So we'll see how that plays out. But congratulations to him. And now 19 first-year head coaches in the NAI out of 94 teams in 2025. It really is something to think about. All right, this is not breaking news, but we'll go ahead and go with it anyway. Did you know 8 NAI players, football players, have been nominated to the All-State Good Works team? And what a way to go. It's talks about the performance you have on the field, also in the classroom. Also, what do you do outside of the field in the classroom? I mean, what kind of work do you do for your community? There have been 8 that have been nominated. Among those, Jackson Dooley from Benedictine, Devin Williams from Bethel, Will Campbell from Carroll, Adam Van Cleve from Concordia, Cole Paulson from Dakota State, Isaiah Courtois from Indiana Wesleyan, Lennox Brown from Morningside, and Matthew Iwamizu. You know what? When I was talking with Coach Morosky about that, he said it so well and so easily, and I followed him, and I needed to hear him again. But anyway, College of Idaho, that's a really big deal. That's nice to be honored for that, and they're going to be selecting a team of all of these players to go. They'll show up on some Sunday, I believe, later on in the season and be recognized at an NFL game for what they've done. But props to all of them for being even nominated for this. 8 NAI football players nominated to the All-State Good Works team. So a shout out to one of them. All right, more coaching news. And this one's not breaking, but it did happen this week. This is Coach Rocky Larson at Mayville State. He's hired John O'Grady to be on his staff. And this is a big-time move. Why is that? Well, first, we haven't talked enough about coaching staffs, staffi. I don't know. We haven't talked enough about coaching staffs as a whole. And you'll notice when we bring coaches on, often they'll say, well, you know, assistant coach, random, offensive coordinator, random, defensive coordinator, random, whatever coach random it happens to be, they're happy to share about the the coaches who are instrumental in directing their players over the course of the season. We need to spend a little bit more time doing that. So shout out to one offensive coordinator already who's been promoted to head coach. John O'Grady's been a head coach before. As a matter of fact, he spent 22 years as the head coach at Wisconsin River Falls Division III school, obviously in the state of Wisconsin. A lot of his coaching time was there. Actually spent a little bit of time at the D1 level at the University of Wisconsin. But of all of this is the number that stands out to me. And if you didn't know this about Coach O'Grady, we want to drop this for you right here. This is going to be year 50 of coaching. How about that? I mean, Coach Larson, you don't even think outside the box. If you have the opportunity to bring in someone who's heading into year 50 years of coaching experience, and Coach Larson said Coach O'Grady was the man who gave him his first opportunity. So this is a fantastic way to give back. He's also talked about it in the release. He mentioned the fact that, you know, he's also the athletic director there. And so Coach O'Grady may have an opportunity to help with a little bit of the head coaching duties if he has to wear another cap that day and be the director of athletics. So shout out to Mayville State. Big things going on there. Coach O'Grady, the assistant head coach, he's worked with and will be working with quarterbacks and special teams. 50 years. That used to seem like a little bit bigger number to me. Being 54 years old now, it's like, okay, well, at least I've lived that long. But still, that's a big deal. So big news out of Mayville. Here's one from Wichita. Let's keep going with news right here. It was announced this week, something that I think may have been out there. It wasn't really a secret, but definitely announced by the folks at Friends and the folks at Kansas Wesleyan that the game between those two football teams will be held this year, not at Adair Austin in Wichita. It's going to be at Equity Bank Park, which is formerly known as Riverfront Stadium. No, not that Riverfront Stadium that used to host the Reds and the Bengals way back when I was a kid. No, not in Cincinnati. It's the one that is in Wichita, but it's no longer named Riverfront Stadium. It's Equity Bank Park. There's some corporate dollars being spent for that, no doubt. Home of the AA Wichita Wind Surge. They play in the Texas League, and they are under the auspices of the Minnesota Twins. So it's a baseball park, a AA baseball park, but it has been hosting football games. And I think this goes back 4 or 5 years now. I know that Friends played a game there before. I think it was with Bethel before. And so it's going to be Friends and Kansas Wesleyan. Now, that's one of the games that we're going to try to be at. So we're not saying set in stone now, but we're going to try to be at that game in particular. And it should be a fun one, too. I mean, these are the two divisional winners from the KCAC from 2024. Friends, of course, won in the Kessinger division. And then in the Bissell division, it was Kansas Wesleyan. They're both in the division that's called the Bissell division now. The makeup's a little bit different as they've restructured. They do that every couple of years. So this is going to be one of those games that, I mean, you're looking at a possible playoff spot on the line with the outcome of this game. Now, Friends won it last year, and this is a big deal. This is one of those games. We're going to talk a little bit about rivalries in a moment, not too much, but this is one of those games that's a rivalry game. And I had a chance to visit with Levi Converse earlier this week. Levi, the sports information director extraordinaire for Friends and a personal friend of mine, absolutely a fantastic person. We were talking about Friends and some of the rivalries that are there. This is one of those. I mean, this is a big deal game anyway. Now, when you have a rivalry, it's important that both teams win occasionally. And I realize if you're an Ohio State fan and you want to talk Division I for a moment, then you're probably really excited about the fact that you won a national championship, but you still lost to Michigan 4 times in a row. Kansas Wesleyan had dropped Friends 9 consecutive years. It had been since 2014 since Friends had won a game on the football field prior to this past year. And Friends came away with a 28-26 victory. It was a 40-yard field goal as time expired off the foot of Cole Thompson, and the Falcons came away with a big-time win in that one. So maybe that helps the rivalry just a little bit. But again, you've got to have both teams winning games for it to be a rivalry. And Kansas Wesleyan had been taking care of business for a long, long time. That is coming up this year. 2 head coaches, fantastic in what they do. Terry Harrison doing a great job with Friends. 1 win prior to his arrival, then 4 wins, then 9 wins, then 11 wins, clearly trending up. Matt Middleton coming off a stint as an offensive coordinator with a team that won a Division II national championship 2 years ago, and getting his opportunity to take the lead spot at Kansas Wesleyan, a program that has much history, and he'll be able to fit in right there, and really excited to see what kind of offensive take he has with the team. So that's going to be November 1st. November 1st, Friends, Kansas Wesleyan, not Riverfront Stadium, Equity Bank Park. Shout out, by the way, to Jeff. Thank you for watching tonight. Jeff, I told Dave there will be a Morningside segment a little bit later on, so definitely stick around for that. Of course, Jeff says roll Stangs. Roll Stangs. One more thing. This is not breaking news in any way, but I did want to bring it out because I know we'll talk about it a little bit more over the course of the season. Montana Tech is going to celebrate its 125th anniversary as an institution of higher learning. Let's just put it that way. So that is 125, September the 13th, which is week 3. It's going to be a home game with Rocky Mountain. That's when Montana Tech will celebrate that. We've already talked about some really cool celebrations at Dickinson State, celebrating 100 years of football this year. And now we're talking about Montana Tech, 125th anniversary. So, all right, big deal there. Let's move on here, and lots to talk about. I'm going to skip through one of these really quickly and push it back to next week. So let me ask you this question. And I'd love to hear your opinion. I have been asking and talking to, sports administration, sports information departments, and just visiting some. I'd love to hear who your school's rival is. And we're trying to get some of the quote unquote official rivals down. So we know, and sometimes it's different on the football field than it may be in other sports, and sometimes you have a big time basketball rival that's different than the big time baseball rival. And so I'd love to hear who the rival is for all of these, because we do want to talk about this in a couple of weeks. Some thoughts that have run through my mind about rivalries and what they mean and how much they mean right now. We have so much change in college football, and that's one of the things with this sport, which is a fantastic sport. And of course the NAI, as a number of coaches have said this summer alone, this is probably the purest form of college football right now. And the rivalries still mean something. The rivalries make a difference. And so I'd love to hear for you. I on the field right now, Morningside and Northwestern, since I know we're going to talk about Morningside in a moment, but a rivalry that looks like it's going by the wayside. Jamestown and Valley City State, that was for the paint bucket. I remember following that along for 2 or 3 years and watching it go down to the wire. Big time games there. And of course, early on in the season, this one early on in the season, Dakota State and Dakota Wesleyan The traveling trophy right there. I realize not all rivalries have names, but some of them do, and that's a big deal. I think, well, the Franciscan Bowl. I think I'm rushing my speech tonight too. The Franciscan Bowl, Marion and St. Francis. That's a big deal. Is that the biggest rival for either of those schools, though? So I'd love to hear that. We were just talking about Friends rivalry with Kansas Wesleyan. I think Friends rivalry with Bethel. That if it wasn't a rivalry before Coach Harrison moved from Bethel to Friends, I'm pretty sure it is a rivalry right now. Friends just down the road from Southwestern. So I'd love to hear your take on that. I think Kaiser and St. Thomas, I think there's the potential for a rivalry there. And I mentioned both of them because some of these schools have played each other. I mean, you talk about some of the schools in the Frontier Conference, you're talking about playing each other hundreds of times. Well, not hundreds, more than 100. And neither Kaiser nor St. Thomas have had football teams even a decade, much less than a decade. But they've played each other now 6 times. And Kaiser's won all of them, but these are the two, right now they're the two headliners in the Sun Conference. With respect to Southeastern, just saying. But right now, these are the two headliners in the Sun Conference. And St. Thomas needs to win a game for it to really be a rivalry, but I think there's something there. So I would love to hear your take on this. So let me know in the comments or the live chat, who do you think your school's rival is? And maybe if you want to mention someone else's rival. All right. Let's move on then. And I wanted to get to something here, and I'll bring up, let me just go ahead and bring this up right now. Bring up the graphic here. All right, take a look at that. These are the NAI national champions for the last 25 years. Now, there are a couple reasons I picked 25 years, and I want to let you know right off the bat, this is not a recency bias thing. As a matter of fact, I am adamantly, very much vocally, strongly against recency bias. And you see that so much in, I think, even sports media people who are new to the scene, and all they see is what's happened in the last 10, 15 years. This is not a recency bias thing. It's actually part of the point that I show you these 25 right here. But 25, the last 25 national champions. Now, you look at that list, and let's talk about it just a little bit. Starting in 2000, a couple of Georgetown wins, 4 Carroll wins. Sioux Falls is in there 3 or 4 years. Carroll winding up getting 6 total. You get St. Xavier, Marion, Grandview, who, by the way, was with the Mid-States Football Association back then. A Frontier Conference aberration, if you will, and then 3 more from the Mid-States. Then Morningside, 3 out of 4. Lindsey Wilson in 20. Morningside 21, Northwestern 22, Kaiser 23, and Grandview in 2024. So if you look at all of those teams, and let's bring them back up here one more time. So here they are. You see it. We don't go back anymore because you look at that and you think, man, Carroll won a lot of championships. Sioux Falls won some championships. St. Francis won a couple. Morningside's won some championships. Let's break it down just a little bit. In the last 25 years, there have been only 12 teams to have won a national championship in the NAI. That is amazing to think about that. Now, 6 of them came from Carroll. 6 more came from Morningside and Sioux Falls. So you look at that then, and there are only 9 teams that won 13, but there were 3 teams that won 12. Georgetown, Grandview, Marion, St. Francis, each with 2. And then let's see, 6 more that won 1. Man, that's really something when you think about those teams. Let's take it a step further. Let's look at their conferences. Did you know only 6 conferences were represented with the national championship over the last 25 years? The Frontier Conference and the Great Plains each had 7. The Mid-States had 6. The Mid-South had 3, and the Heart and the Sun each have 1. And here's the point that we're heading toward right now. Both of those were in the last 2 years. The Frontier, Great Plains, Mid-States, and Mid-South, 4 conferences alone, had 23 consecutive national championships. Now, this you think about a point that we made the other day here on the channel in the fact that the Sooner Athletic Conference hasn't even won a playoff game. It's been just a number of conferences that have held on to all of these titles. And I have to ask the question, is there really such a thing, first off, as a dynasty in the NAI? I think there have been. Carroll obviously had a dynasty in the 2000s. Texas A&I had a dynasty, late 50s, early 60s, into the 70s. I think you have to talk about that. Could you say what Morningside had in the late 20-teens and in 2020s? Was that a dynasty? 3 out of 4, it's not bad. Sioux Falls, 3 out of 4, not bad. You talk about some big time wins there. But what you also saw were a number of repeat champions. And in that 25-year period, there was a title repeat 7 times. But in the last 5 years, there have been 5 separate champions. And my question then is, are we going to be seeing repeat champions anymore? I think there are a lot of things that come into play in this, and not the least of which is the transfer portal, which again, there is no transfer portal in the NAI. There's a transfer market, but there's no transfer portal in the NAI. But because of the transfer portal, it opened in October of 2018. And not really, everyone jumped on board right off the bat. They were all ready for it, but they didn't jump on the board right off the bat. So they're getting used to this idea. Then these players in Division I specifically, a lot of players in D2 and D3 get on board as well. Then COVID happens in 2020. And you're dealing with all the fallout of things that the country was going through then and all the decisions that were being made. And after that kind of sorted itself out, and the transfer portal has become more and more a real thing, since that time, it really kicks in 20 and 21. And I'll even say 21. Since that time in the NAI, there haven't been any repeat champions. Morningside won in 21, but hadn't won since 2019. So not a repeat right there. And the trickle-down effect is a real thing for the NAI for a number of reasons. From Division I, you get, number one, there are going to be more players that come down to play, because especially with this settlement in court right now, where there were 85 roster spots for scholarship players in Division I and room for 35 more walk-ons, 120. Now that number is locked in at 105, period. You can give everyone a scholarship if you want to, but that's 15 spots that aren't there. Well, you take 15 spots that aren't there times 100 plus Division I teams, and that trickles down because there are a whole lot of players now without a job. I use that term loosely, but it's going to move down. Division II, Division III. And if they're taking Division II players' spots, well, where are some of those players going to go? They're not going to get recruited as highly out of high school because you can bring in a transfer player. Same thing for Division III. And it works its way down. And I realize, please, just before we go any farther, I'm not saying that one is better than the other. I'm not saying that Division II is better than Division III is better than NAI. I'm saying it's still a trickle-down effect. And because of that, you're going to see different teams now, different makeups, more opportunities now for players to play at the NAI level and fill that roster. The reverse is true also, though, because with all of this Wild West transferring going on all levels of football now, you could have an NAI player play at a fantastic level, and somebody on the Division I level or Division II level has been watching. They've been scouting, going, wow, that kid's good. That kid's really good. I'll bet he'd want an opportunity to play here. And so even though there are players that are making their way to the NAI, there are players that are also being poached. And yes, I did use that word, poached out of the NAI to play at a different level. The makeup of the teams is radically different. There are coaches this week in the NAI that are posting on social media. They're still looking for positional players. It is July 31st. These are things that years ago you would have thought was already done with the first Wednesday in February, and signing days come around and we've signed everybody and we have our team and we can go and look and see what this team's going to look like in the spring and get our spring practices in and play our spring football game, and it's all going to be great. We go into the summer, we know what our team's going to look like. Except that's not the case anymore. And so where it has been in the past 4 conferences, dominated 23 years of national championships. It's been 2 new conferences this year, each getting their first national championship as a conference. Pretty good deal. Props to Grandview for getting a national championship with 2 different conferences, by the way, with the Mid-States and the Heart. And, of course, the Sun and Kaiser back then. There's so much change. So the question then is, will we see repeats anymore? Will we see anything like Carroll repeating 4 times? That one seems to be a little bit unlikely. And that one seemed unlikely even in the 2000s. But they did it. Georgetown a couple of times. St. Francis a couple of times. Morningside, the most recent repeat. It's a big deal. Are we through seeing repeats in the NAI? Personally, I don't think so, but it's going to take the right scenario. And I think if there's anything, if I were hoping for this, and I don't know that I'm necessarily hoping for it, I don't have a dog in this hunt. But if I were hoping for this, I would say the thing that gives me hope the most about it is Kaiser. Because Kaiser has, in 3 years, had 2 different head coaches, 3 different quarterbacks, realistically, in and out. Because I'm going to go ahead and talk about a quarterback that played for a national championship too. And they've made it to the championship game 3 consecutive years. Won it only once, but made it there 3 consecutive years. So I would say there's hope for that. But it's definitely something you want to think about, because if you're, somewhere else, we're talking about first-year coaches a little bit later tonight. Is there ever a chance to make it to that next level? And I think the answer is yes. I agree with the coaches, and I think Coach Morosky said it best. If you haven't watched that video with Coach Morosky yet, you really need to. But he's talking about training up the players, developing the players. Not talking as much about transfers. Not that he didn't say he didn't have transfers. And in 2025, you have to have some, but can you still recruit? Can you still develop? What kind of coaching staff do you have that can develop those players? And I think that there's a lot to be said for that. Okay. Already been through 1 cough drop tonight. We may go through a second. We'll see. Shameless self-promotion time. And it's a little bit different now at this midpoint of the show, because usually I say, hey, listen, we talked to this coach and this coach and this coach and football and volleyball, and we previewed this. I have none of that this week. Absolutely none. It's the weirdest week so far this summer, because I did not get to have any interviews and thought that we had a few, and the timing's just not working out. So we hope to have some more. We're almost to episode 500 of the summit, so you definitely want to tune in for that, and I think that's going to be really cool. So we're approaching that. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. I will tell you, as I always do, I have zero idea what it does for the algorithm. I don't know what kind of help the subscriptions do. However, it's very encouraging. I think it really does help. I think it makes a difference. I can't say for sure, but I think it does. But even if you haven't, which by the way you should, but even if you haven't, thanks for watching, because that means a lot too. That means more than the subs. I'm glad you're here. All right. Hypothetically speaking, do you speak hypothetical? We do here on Midwest Sportsnet every now and again, especially in college football season, college football this week. Hypothetically speaking, we said we patterned this after the What If comics from Marvel. So I asked the question tonight, and the question is this: what if Morningside doesn't win the GPAC this year? All right, Jeff and Dave, if you're still watching, you may have to cover your ears for that one. But I'm going to ask the question anyway. What if Morningside doesn't win the GPAC this year? So let's talk about Morningside for a little bit. We've done this with Grandview and other schools, so let's do it with Morningside. Morningside's won 13 of the last 14 conference titles. At one point in time, between 2018 and 2023, Morningside won 75 consecutive regular season games. That is an astronomical number. Actually, it's only 2 digits. It's really not astronomical, but it sounds good to say that. During those GPAC championship years, in other words, in the 14 years in which Morningside won the GPAC, their conference record was 124-3. I think that says a lot about having lost a couple of games in the same season back in 2023. That was really something. 124-3 in conference play in the 14 years of winning the conference title. It goes back to 2005, and then it was 2011 to 2022. So there were 12 straight right there. And then last year, 2024. And you can drop some big names on here. I mean, Joe Dolanchek, NAI Player of the Year. Trent Solzma, NAI Player of the Year. Connor Niles, one of the best receivers in NAI history. And I'm giving a little bit of recency bias on this because these are some of the ones that might be familiar to people who are watching right now. Brandon Weegar, Reed Juergensmeyer, Anthony Sims, Zach Norton, recent times, Dijon Walls, Tyler Wingert, by the way, Drew Sellen. And these are names that litter the Morningside record book. Drew Sellen, current member of the team, actually is at the top of one of the records in Morningside. Dave, do you know which list that Drew's name is at the top of? I do, but do you know which one? So I'm just throwing that one out there. So in all this time, 2005 to 2024, 20 years, 14 conference championships for Morningside. 2006 to 2010, all 5 of those were Sioux Falls at one, and 2023 was Northwestern. Still funny that the year that, well, no, okay. That was 2023. Sorry, got off on another topic. 21, the question then is, what if Morningside doesn't win the GPAC? Well, here are the answers that come with it. Number one, it's not likely to affect their opportunity to go to the playoffs. Morningside's won 14 GPAC championships in the last 21 years, but in the last 21 years, they've been to the playoffs every single year. So the Mustangs know how to take care of business. 7 of these playoff appearances came in non-GPAC title years. So the first question is, will it affect their opportunity to go to the playoffs? I don't think so. And I think a lot of it may have to do with how they start the season. Do you get that win against Benedictine? That one's going to play in. But a win there really starts you off right. The second question that you have to ask is, well, if Morningside doesn't win the GPAC title, who's going to do it? And you would think that a team to win the title would have to beat Morningside along the way, not just lose to Morningside, but happen to hope Morningside loses 2 or 3 more games along the way. Who's going to beat them? Northwestern did it in 2023. Northwestern was 8-2 last year. And against Morningside, 10-25 all time. Morningside's won 25 of 35 matchups between the Mustangs and the Red Raiders. Northwestern won 34-20 the last time the Red Raiders beat Morningside, 34-20. That was back in 2023. It stopped a 75-game regular season winning streak. That was the one. Could it be Northwestern? Could it be for Coach McCarty that the quarterbacks, the 2 freshman quarterbacks that saw time and got the experience last year, that they found a place for one or both, and that offense keeps going again, the defense steps up, and they're able to stop the high-powered Morningside offense? Could it be? Could it be Dort? Also 8-2 last year. The last time Dort beat Morningside was 28-24. That was also in 2023 after Northwestern may have given them the playbook for that. The very next week, Dort came away with a win. By the way, that's the only win all time against Morningside for Dort. 16-1, the Mustangs have the advantage over the defenders. Could it be Dort? Could it be Coach Penner's team that continually gets better and better and better over the course of his decade there at the helm? The defense has been solid for Dort. Again, it would take a strong defense to be able to shut down what Morningside does on offense. So could it be Dort? Could it be Concordia? Also 8-2 last year. Concordia's road, that's been a little bit tougher against Morningside over the years. The last time that the Bulldogs beat the Mustangs 34-19 all the way back in 2003. That's the only time that Concordia has won against Morningside. 22-1 all time have been the Mustangs over the Bulldogs. Well, for Coach Daberco, he's comfortable with who he has coming in. He's lost a lot in the fact that there have been a number of seniors on this ball club that went 8-2 last year that have moved on, expended their eligibility and more. Is it going to be enough, though, Does he have that to get there? And if the offense starts firing, that's when, we've already talked about Morningside's offense already. Morningside's defense, I think, has been woefully neglected in the conversation over the course of the last 7 years. But because we talk about the offensive firepower, and it's there, and it's real, and it puts points on the board year after year after year. But this is a defense that's tough too. And I think that would be the thing. That defense, can it step up, and will it step up once again as it has 22 of 23 times against Concordia? We'll see. I threw out those three teams there, but I mean, you could throw out more. The GPAC's tough from top to bottom. One more, just for giggles. Let's throw out Mount Marty. Mount Marty's on the climb. Mount Marty had its first winning season in school history last year. Coach Micheletti doing a great job there, building up that program. Mount Marty's never beaten Morningside. 0-4 all time against the Mustangs. So if that were the case, it would be a big-time upset. The third question, though, that comes with this, and I think it's a legitimate question, is what if Morningside doesn't win the GPAC? We said we think that their playoff spot would probably be secure, but what about anyone else's? Does the GPAC become only a 2-team league? Does the GPAC become a 3-team league at that point? The last time Morningside didn't win the conference title, the GPAC had 3 teams in the playoffs. You had Morningside, you had Northwestern, and you had Dort. So if the Mustangs are not dominating everything all the way through, and it's a jumble at second and third and fourth place like it was last year, a 3-way tie for second place, only one of those 3 teams with the 8-2 record got to move on to the playoffs. The other 2 were on the outside looking in. If Morningside trips up somewhere along the way, but still is going to make the playoffs, again, I think a lot to be said to you want to get that win against Benedictine. Do the other teams, does it shake out a little bit differently for the other teams to where you can see legitimately 3 teams coming out of that league? I don't see 4 teams coming out of a league anytime soon. And I know it's been that close to that in the past, but I don't see that coming anytime soon. So is it a 2-team league or a 3-team league if Morningside doesn't win the GPAC? Now, to Dave and Jeff and any other Stangs fans out there, this is just hypothetically speaking, not making any predictions about Morningside winning or losing the GPAC this year. Just wanted to see what the effect would be. So there you go. All right, let's look here, and let me see if I can bring this one up, because Henchman 21 may be listening, may not be listening, but Henchman 21 may in fact be listening. And if you are, I present to you tonight's most difficult schedule submission. How about the Simpson Redhawks? Now, Henchman 21 says, I can't talk about a most difficult schedule unless I'm talking about somebody from the Frontier Conference. We've already presented Rocky Mountain as a potential team for a most difficult schedule in NAI this year. How about this one? Simpson gets Southern Oregon twice. Now, I went with the Frontier East before. Now I'm going with Frontier West. They get Southern Oregon twice. One of them's not a conference game, but it's just an opportunity to fill up that schedule. Then you go to Division III Pacific Lutheran. We'll go ahead and stop here. You're probably right, Dave, but I hope that you hung on through all the GPAC talk. I'm just saying there. It's been 21 fell asleep. All right. Pacific Lutheran Division III. That's going to be tough. On the road for the first 2 games. You get a bye weekend there too. Then versus Mayville State. Then travel to North Dakota. Long trip for Simpson. Longest trip to date for Simpson. Then you get that Frontier Conference West. College of Idaho, Southern Oregon again. Both of them at home. At Carroll. That's going to be tough. Montana Western. Always tough. At Eastern Oregon. Very tough challenge there. You're going to get that one on the road. And then Arizona Christian. And I really went back and forth on this one between Arizona Christian and Simpson. And I decided to go with Simpson on this one, maybe being a little bit tougher because the Redhawks have to travel to Arizona Christian for this one. So that's another long road trip there. On the road 6 times out of 10 games this year. Simpson already 0-9 last season in their inaugural campaign for Coach Daniel. I think there's a Redhawks win in here. I really do. And it would, if it's in the first half of the season, I think it's more likely in the first half of the season to maybe slip up on someone. I think it becomes more challenging as the year goes on because there's more wear and tear there. And then you've got a couple of teams in there that really, I mean, that section in October, all of those teams could be playing for a playoff spot. And sorry, Henchman 21, but I don't think you're going to get. You may get 2 out of the West, but I don't know. So they're all going to be playing for at least one playoff spot. That's where it gets tough for Simpson right there. So if you're going to get that win, at least break into the win column. I think it's more likely going to happen in the earlier part of the season. So there we go right there. All right. I think, let's see, are we down to, yes, we are. We're down to final segment of the night, and I'm really thankful for everyone watching and sticking around tonight. If you are here and you're watching us live, please let us know in the chat from where you're watching and who you support, what team you support. We know a lot of them already, but maybe we don't know who your team is. So tell us who your team is tonight as you subscribe to the channel along the way. One more question tonight, because we've asked the question all year long, have you met Ted? And we've been talking about different coaches, first-year coaches. There were, coming into today, 18 first-year head coaches, first year at their program. And so let's go ahead and put that up there. You can see I actually did have just enough time tonight to add one more in there. At the bottom, you can see the new head coach at Graceland. So 19 first-year head coaches there. That's a lot. That's a lot. I'd love to get some research on this to see if this is the largest number. I would think it almost have to be. But the largest number of first-year coaches definitely in the last 30 years. The question tonight then is this: how do you measure success? You look at all those coaches there, first-year coaches, first year at their program. Actually, with Coach Thurston down there at the very bottom, first year for the program period. So a lot of new faces and new names. And I think we asked this question last year, but I think it holds a different feel this year too, with all of them out there. The question was asked on the forum, where we have a chance to get to visit with some guys from some other YouTube channels here and talk some NAI football. We'll do that on August 11th. That's a Monday night. So please be sure and put that on your calendar. But we were talking about Coach Russ from Kaiser and asked the question, what defines success? Because you're going into your first year of program coming off a national championship. And even though he was a part of that championship as an assistant coach, what does he do and how do you measure success? I think he had success in 2024. He made it back to the championship game. Didn't win it, but made it back to the championship game. Victories all the way across down the line to that point. One loss on the season, not bad. Not bad to a very, very tough Grandview team as well. So I think it's successful for him, but we have now 19 coaches. Now, success defined, that's the accomplishment of an aim or a purpose. Okay? So you achieve something. What do you need to achieve to be a success in your first year? Now, coaches are always talking about, going 1-0 each week, and that's fine. And that's a measure of success throughout the course of the year. I get it. I'm with you on that, Coach, whoever you have to be. Coach Ram, you're doing a great job. Culture is something that coaches talk about. And if you can build up your culture and you get from one place where maybe it wasn't there before you came in, and now you're the head coach and you get to bring in that culture that helps not only on the football field, but in these young men's lives, then yes, that's success. And you can't take away from that at all. I don't want to take away from those intangibles. I believe in those intangibles. I mean, if you've hung around this channel for any length of time, you know that we're all about, we know that this life is not the end. And spiritually, the decisions you make have eternal value. So I'm all about winning off the field. I think it's a big deal. I mean, Indiana Wesleyan, if you haven't seen the interview with Coach Rohde, that was last week. But if you haven't seen the interview with Coach Rohde, you need to watch that. One of the big things that he talked about, and this happened even midway through the year, they had 14 baptisms in their program. 14 players got baptized. That's success. But how else do you measure success? So for a lot of these first-year programs, I mean, we could look at a few of them. Please let me know what you think about this. Tell me what you think in the chat or in the comment section there. You go to Coach Thurston at Rio Grande. Man, I was born in Texas. I live 15 miles from Texas right now. Saying Rio Grande still just doesn't roll off the tongue. Anyway, Rio Grande, brand new program this year. What's success for him? Honestly, I think if you ask just about anyone, win a game. Coach Thurston stepped in. He wasn't originally deemed to be the head coach. He came in as part of the staff, but the other head coach There was a parting of ways. Coach Thurston steps in. He's got a lot on his plate. He's had time to make the adjustments and be the man. I think if you win a game, you'd have to look at that to an extent as successful. Same thing. I mean, honestly, look at Coach Daniel now at Simpson. There were no wins there. I think success this year, you put one or two in the win column. I coached a high school football team 1 year, and I was asked to start the program. And I don't bring this out. I don't like talking about me as much on things like this, but that year, the 1 year I coached, we won one game. Still should have won two, but we won one. And I had coaches tell me after the fact, said, look, don't downplay that one. There are a lot of us that didn't win one our first year, especially starting a program. So I think for Coach Daniel, you get that one more win in there. Makes a difference. Sam Camp at William Woods, Sean Flynn at Judson. Each one won one game in 22 or 24. I think for both of those programs, success, you can measure that and say, we won two. For Coach Olenichek at Lawrence Tech, I don't know what a number is on there. I would say, though, don't go backwards. Don't let the program go backwards. Come in and you do it. Coach Springer at Bethel stepped in, and he was a part of that program for a while under Coach Jasper, and now he's taken over as the lead man. What is success in Bethel? From, again, outside the intangibles, I would say be playing for meaningful football in November. Be playing meaningful football in November. That could make a difference. LaQuentin Black at Missouri Valley. Second winningest program in NAI football history. So much history there. And he was a part of it too. Made a run deep into the playoffs in his time. He's an alum. How do you define success there in year number one? Missouri Valley's been right there, kind of middle of the road in conference play right now. Put yourself in the upper part of your division. Make sure, again, that you're playing meaningful football in November. Dane Brown from Faulkner. We'll get a chance to visit with him sometime very soon. I'm gonna leave that one alone. I want to ask him personally. But some of these other coaches, for Matt Middleton at Kansas Wesleyan, you're in a tougher division now. This is a different look. And it's the Bissell this year. Bissell is going to be a challenge. It's going to be a bear. I think for Coach Middleton, put yourself in the position to be playing for a playoff spot. Don't let it run away from you in year one. I know there are going to be changes in that. You put yourself in that position. For Coach Parent at Georgetown, what's success? Well, this is a program that has national titles to its credit, program that under Coach Oliver, who is now the athletic director, got to the playoffs. I think you get back to the playoffs. Put yourself in a position where you're not just playing meaningful football in November, but that you're still playing through the month of November. Couple more really quickly, and I know I didn't mean to skip through all of them, but I mean, just to look at that, I'd love to hear your thoughts on maybe your favorite first-year head coach. For Coach Sherman at St. Francis, following Coach Donnelly, we mentioned this last week. You never want to be the man that follows the man. The pressure to fill those shoes. And I realize, that the coach going out is going to say, no, I'm not leaving you pressure. There's pressure. And people are going to look, especially year one. They're going to look. Coach Sherman, he's a Hall of Famer in his own right. I don't think he's going to be intimidated by the pressure. He's been there. He's played for a national championship. He's coached on this level. He's been there and done that. And again, member of the Hall of Fame at St. Francis. I don't think he's going to be intimidated by the pressure. So I think there's a lot to be said for that, but I think he's going to be all right. So anyway. Oh, and finally, Coach Peterson. Well, we saw Coach Miles Russ last year take over for a program that won a national championship. He got his team all the way back to the championship game again. Lost only one game all season long. That was in the national championship. He was an assistant coach that was elevated. Coach E.J. Peterson is an assistant coach that was elevated. Saw his team won a national championship, go undefeated. So what's success for him? Man, he's got a lot of tools back. He has a lot of players that are coming back in very strong positions. He's got the defense in place, which was tough. He has the NAI Player of the Year returning. One more opportunity for Jackson Waring. You have to make the playoffs. You still have to make the playoffs. Do you have to win the heart? I would say, yeah, you have to win the heart. Do you have to win a national championship again? I don't think so, but I do think you would want to be playing in December. But I'm not going to say anything less than that is not success. But this is a program that has now reestablished goals and has raised the bar. And Coach Peterson's been a part of raising that bar. So I feel like the Vikings are in good hands, and I'm sure they have. So, all right, really quickly, as we start to wrap things up here, questions, let's go ahead and throw those up there. Missouri Valley. Heard that Missouri Valley got a running back from the University of Missouri. I was actually chasing a story, Mark, a little bit earlier on a student athlete making a reverse of that, going from the NAI to Division I. So that's been the story I'm chasing right now. I haven't heard that, so I'll look this up, but I'd love to hear that too. That would go a long way. That would absolutely go a long way toward helping Missouri Valley, Coach Black from Missouri Valley. They go a long way for helping his cause there and seeing the success. All right, one more. Let's look at this one really quickly. Michael, thoughts on the KCAC? Any programs of note? Well, we talked about it just a little bit earlier, Michael, and here are my thoughts on that. Just initially, in having the opportunity to visit with some of the coaches, not all the coaches in the KCAC, some of the coaches. I visited with Coach Harrison way back near the start of the preview videos, and I know that camp is like right now, so there are probably going to be some things that change. Friends won this division last year. Kansas Wesleyan won its division as well. I think November 1st is big. We talked about this at the outset tonight, that the game's going to be played at the Wichita Wind Surge AA baseball program. It's going to be played at that stadium. I think those teams are big-time contenders, but to say that they're the only ones, I mean, I'm going to pull this up because I want to look to see exactly where this is here. But you want to talk about part of the schedule, because Evangel moved out, but Kansas Wesleyan moved into this division. And I pulled up Friends because I mentioned Coach Harrison. October 18th versus McPherson. October 25th at Southwestern. November 1st versus Kansas Wesleyan. Now, I realize that Sterling and University of St. Mary are still in the division, but that part of the schedule right there, that's huge. And I think any one of those four teams could definitely lay a claim to a playoff spot and a divisional championship. And I think, again, this could be a division that, just like last year, was able to pull two. Friends in Southwestern both made it out of the division into the playoffs. So my thoughts on the KCAC right now pretty much still revolve around the Bissell. And I think that there's a lot to be done there. I think Evangel, from the Kessinger side of it, here's the thing for Evangel. All five teams that are in that division, that those teams are going to have to play to try to make it into the playoffs and win the Kessinger title for the automatic playoff bid. The five teams that Evangel's played in the last 2 years in the KCAC have gone 10-0 against them. So just from that, Evangel, they're in a really good position. I think there are four teams that are fighting and competing for the other title. All right, Jordan. Lindsey Wilson signed offensive coordinator Jay Bright from Bethel. Wow. How about that? How does this impact the Blue Raiders? Well, it's obviously it looks to me like it's a benefit. I don't think that you go anywhere but up from right there. Coach Kleckler's team has been strong. Coach Kleckler's team they've done well. It's a Lindsey Wilson team that still that benefits, by the way, I think, from having a national championship to its credit within the last 5 years. I think that it's good for recruiting. I think it's also good for bringing in transfers, because you're playing at a program that that's going to be playing at a top level. So I think that's a benefit. I need to go back then and look again. I don't want to say too much right off the bat, but I want to go back and look again and see how many players are returning. And when was this signed? So that start looking at some of that offense. Did they have time to work on that during the spring and into the summer some before fall camp gets here? So that's my probably not too in detailed take on that, Jordan, but I do think it's a benefit from that. So thanks for asking. Anything else? I said we were going to go a little bit shorter tonight, and we're closing in on an hour. So we saved one of the topics for next week. I'm going to go ahead and talk about that next week. And then it's just now 11 days until we get to visit with some of our friends from around the country who signed in December. Okay, that makes a difference, Jordan, because if you've got your offensive coordinator, he's had the entirety of the spring and the summer as opposed to just coming in right now. When you said that, I was thinking you may have signed him right now. They signed him in December. They have everything in place that they need to do. I think it's definitely a benefit, no question. Friends from around the country. We have friends from Florida and NAI F-ball. Corey's going to be here. Friends from Texas. James is going to be here. Friends from Arizona, as Vince is going to be here. And I think we're all going to get to see each other in Fort Worth on December 20th. I think we all get to be there at the national championship game, but we're going to talk about the season. That's on August 11th, and we'll do that on a Monday night. In the meantime, I will get a chance to visit with you live again on Thursday night next week. Hopefully, we'll be able to have a few more interview videos that are actually posted this week, and maybe we get to have one even tomorrow. We'll see if the schedule works out. In the meantime, thank you all for watching tonight. I can't even tell you what it means to me. I appreciate that a lot. Mrs. Midwest Sportsnet knows that this time of night on a Thursday night is a big time thing for me, and I'm really, really grateful. It'll still be on Thursday nights, but we'll go to Thursday and Sunday as the season actually gets underway, and we'll have previews, and we'll wrap up the week, and we'll do all those things. So college football this week will be twice a week in about a month. But in the meantime, I'm thankful for all of you. Jordan, thanks for stopping by tonight. Michael, Mark, Dave, Hinchman may still be asleep. Dave, Jeff, thank you all for commenting tonight and being in the chat. I appreciate it. You guys mean a lot to me, and I just want you to know that it's a community that I'm enjoying being a part of, and I think that we're growing. And tell a friend. Let's talk more about NAI football and more right here on College Football This Week. So until next Thursday night, God bless you all. Thank you very much for watching. Please be sure and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. It really does mean a lot, and we would be grateful. So here we go. Let's see. Yeah. God bless you all. Have a great night. See you later.